What's up, everyone? Welcome into Dodger Heads, presented by DodgerBlue.com. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined today by Anthony Witrado. A little bit of breaking news and some good news for Dodgers fans because we have an update in the Shohei Ohtani, Ippei Mizuhara case. And it's good news, Anthony. The New York Times, among others, reporting that Shohei Ohtani's former interpreter, Ippei Mizuhara, is expected to plead guilty to theft and some other charges. TMZ Sports also confirming that their sources are telling them that federal investigators are going to clear Ohtani of all wrongdoing. Anthony, as you read all of this, as you hear all of this, as this is coming out in real time, what's your immediate reaction?
I think this was probably the most predictable outcome.
Yeah.
I don't think this is, a blockbuster news break or, a big, huge plot twist. I think whether you wanted Ohtani to face punishment or you thought that he was completely hands clean innocent, I think this was probably the most likely outcome after understanding what we could based on what is out there and all the reporting that's been done. I think this is probably the path that was easiest to predict. I know a lot of the critics out there of Ohtani were saying, well, who's investigating Mizuhara, and how come there's no charges being filed and yada yada. I think this probably answers that question. Some people are still not going to be satisfied with this, but I think the fact that he's going to plead guilty, that there has been a criminal investigation going on that involved Mizuhara, tells us that whatever the federal authorities were investigating and however Ohtani was involved, they seem satisfied that he was not part of the criminal part of this.
Yeah, and we said from the get-go, the next step was going to be, does Ippei talk? And what does he say? And obviously, to some degree, the answer has been no. But if he's talking to feds, and as it says, there's been an investigation which began 3 weeks ago, and he's in negotiations to plead guilty to these things, that would be the next step, because the article continues and basically says this will essentially confirm the account that Ohtani gave to reporters 2 weeks ago, in which he said he had no knowledge of what happened and how the money disappeared. Here's the most interesting, craziest part of this article, Anthony, as far as I'm concerned. It says those briefed on the matter claim that prosecutors have uncovered evidence that Mizuhara may have stolen more money from Ohtani than the $4.5 million he was initially accused of pilfering, the People said. In particular, the authorities think they have evidence that Mizuhara was able to change the settings on Ohtani's bank account so that Ohtani would not receive alerts and confirmations about transactions, the 3 people briefed on this matter have said. And that's the biggest question, right? The question everybody who has been skeptical and doubted Ohtani's story is, how does somebody get your money without you knowing? If it's true that the authorities have evidence that A, he was doing it, and B, he went as far as not only to take the money, but change some of the settings behind the sort of the wall, if you will, then that would sort of tie up every potential loose end as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and it's not surprising when you consider that this person has the controls to your life, essentially. And we've made the comparison on here before that imagine if we lived in Japan and we're relying on somebody else to handle all of our business aside from the actual thing that we get paid to do. Something like this can happen. It's not unheard of. And considering that Mizuhara was in charge of things like paying bills and all that sort of thing, he would be at the controls of that kind of stuff and could manipulate them so that way Ohtani didn't know when things like money went missing or when Mizuhara was making withdrawals or things like that. So now hopefully this teaches him a lesson that he needs to be a little more involved or in all aspects of his life, when it concerns these kinds of things. You hope that he does learn that from this, so it's something like this can't happen again. But, considering, like I said earlier, everything that we know about this and everything that's been reported, at least publicly to this point, this seems right along the lines of reasonable in terms of, how this might have happened and how he was able to keep Ohtani in the dark when he was, withdrawing large sums of money from his accounts.
Yeah, look, if I've got two-factor authentication on my like $279 in my bank account, can we get 12-factor authentication on Ohtani's 4.5 million that just gets wired out without him knowing? One other note, by the way, in this New York Times article, I think was interesting. People have wondered who's investigating. They're reporting that the investigation has been jointly led by the LA office of the IRS Criminal Division, as well as the Department of Homeland Security, along with the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Central District of California. So people that are kind of connecting those dots. Again, TMZ Sports also had an article talking about how Ohtani's going to be cleared, that this was related to a federal investigation. So all of these things coming out at the same time, I think adds credibility, obviously, to two different people basically reporting slightly, different pieces of the same story. Last piece here, Anthony, before we go. This is good news for the Dodgers, not only in that Ohtani is going to be cleared, but how quickly this investigation has happened. I was afraid that this was going to drag on for 6 months and there would continue to be questions. But if this whole thing gets wrapped up, if he's pled guilty in the next 7 to 10 days and basically is pleading guilty to the things that people are wondering if Ohtani was actually more involved in, i.e., the transfer of money mostly and the betting itself, if he's pleading guilty to those things, not only will Ohtani be cleared, but he'll be cleared, I would say, far more quickly than I was expecting.
Yeah, if this is a situation where everybody was cooperating to their fullest capabilities, including Mizuhara, because I think he probably realized the sort of trouble that he was facing, that it was going to be better for him if he cooperated as much as he possibly could. That helps to expedite this entire thing, right? This is a huge win, not just like you said for Ohtani and the Dodgers, but I think for Major League Baseball, considering the scrutiny they've been under when it comes to their gambling partnerships and how this ties into that, and how this was sort of what a lot of people were saying, a natural sort of deviation and a natural offshoot of things that are happening in professional sports. The fact that they're able to clear the game's biggest star, essentially the face of baseball, this quickly is really good for Rob Manfred in the game. Aside from the Dodgers, I think this goes much larger and covers a much larger thing than just Chavez Ravine. And so when you consider some of the criticism that Major League Baseball was under, which still is valid in my opinion. But the fact that Ohtani is being cleared is huge for the league, because the last thing they wanted is to be jumping into all of these deals with gambling partners and then have their biggest guy go down for to whatever degree because he was involved in gambling.
No, I'm with you, and we talked about it on our show. Like the fact that you had other people, other fans, other teams that were almost rooting for Ohtani to go down. It was like, don't you understand what this would do to the game as a whole? Yes, it would hurt the Dodgers, but it would ruin the game that allegedly you love and that the team that you love plays as a part of. So I think it's good for Major League Baseball. It's obviously good for the Dodgers. It's obviously good for Ohtani. And, that this whole thing was wrapped up quickly. And honestly, this could be the best possible outcome for Mizuhara as well. If he pleads guilty, he gets the most lenient sentence possible and everybody can go on with their life, I think is ultimately the outcome that we're hoping for here. So check out DodgerBlue.com. We've got a write-up up as we speak that will cover all of this. Again, the TMZ report, the New York Times report as well. And stay tuned right here to Dodger Blue 1958, our YouTube channel, because as more information comes out when he actually does plead guilty, assuming that these reports are correct, and we will have the latest information on all of that. That is Anthony Witrado. I am Jeff Spiegel. A shout out briefly, by the way, to Homage. If you haven't checked out Homage, HOMAGE, they make sports gear, awesome stuff. They hooked me up with some t-shirts, and so shout out to them. Great stuff over there. If you haven't already, check out their Dodger stuff. It's the most comfortable t-shirts and the coolest designs out there, in my opinion. So we appreciate everybody for watching. Again, that is Anthony. I am Jeff. Enjoy the rest of your day. And as always, go Dodgers.